One slap, one camera phone, one billionaire nobody saw coming. In less than 10 seconds, they turned her into a victim. But in the days that followed, she turned herself into a revolution. The sound of gold stilettos echoed through the marble halls of Kingsford Mall like the ticking of a well-kept clock. Imani Blake walked with the grace of royalty and the purpose of a CEO, who owned not just the floor beneath her heels but the entire skyline above it. Her deep, mahogany skin glowed under the skylights. People turned their heads, but not because she sought attention. Her beauty was undeniable, her walk regal, and her aura made security guards stand straighter without knowing why. Her silk-pressed hair fell gently in waves over one shoulder, and her burgundy lips were a statement even before she spoke. She was checking the finishes on her newly opened flagship location, floor number 76 of the Blake Lux Retail Group's national chain. Every light fixture, every piece of polished chrome, every shop placement had her fingerprints on it. Then she heard it. "Ma'am?" came the voice, harsh, accusatory, cracking through her world like a whip. She turned slowly. Lamal. Cop, pale-faced and barrel-chested, marched toward her like she had just shoplifted the crown jewels. His eyes narrowed. His hand rested on the taser clipped to his hip. "What's in the bag?" he barked. Imani blinked. Slowly, her designer clutch had no bag. "Excuse me," I said. "What's in the bag?" "We got a report of a suspicious woman loitering around Cartier." "Suspicious woman?" she asked, her voice as cool as glass. He stepped closer. "Don't play smart. I need you to come with me." There were no warnings, no further questions. Just a hard slap that echoed across the atrium, caught by 4 camera phones in the food court. The moment stopped. The world watched, and the woman he thought he was putting in her place. She owned his paycheck, the entire damn building. Slap went online at 2:13 p.m. By 2:37 p.m., it was on Twitter's trending page. By 3:15 p.m., it had over 2 million views on TikTok, with hashtags like hashtag slapped by power and hashtag she owns them all, climbing fast. But most didn't know her name yet, not until someone zoomed in on the badge. It's pinned discreetly on her lapel, gold-plated, elegant, and stamped with Blake Lux Group. Another TikTok followed. A side-by-side video with a Forbes cover, y'all. It's the woman that racist cop just slapped. She's a billionaire, literal billionaire. The comments exploded. Shh. Owns them all. This is about to get legendary. She better bankrupt his entire existence. Queen energy. She ain't just pressing charges. She's pressing the whole system. By 5:02 p.m., Imani's name was global. Imani sat in her penthouse suite at the Grand Lux Tower. 15 floors above her office, her assistant Jada stood nearby, hands trembling, phone buzzing nonstop. Everyone's calling, CNN, The View, even Oprah's people. Imani said nothing. She stared at her reflection in the tall glass window lip, slightly swollen. Dignity completely intact. "This was supposed to be a soft opening," Jada whispered. "I am finally turned. That man slapped me because he thought I didn't belong. Now the world knows I own everything he stands on." She picked up her phone. "Get legal, get press, and get me the police chief's number." Her war had begun. Officer Brett Mallory had 20 years on the force and a permanent chip on his shoulder. He sat in the precinct's break room, watching the video on loop. His hands shook. His face was pale. "That's the mall CEO?" whispered his supervisor. Lieutenant Carr ran a hand over his face. "You didn't just assault a woman, Mallory. You assaulted the richest black woman in the damn country." She didn't look rich. That's the problem. Within the hour, Officer Mallory was placed on unpaid suspension. But the calls pouring into the mayor's office made it clear. Suspension wouldn't be enough. The city needed a sacrifice. Imani stepped into her press conference wearing a crimson power suit and heels so sharp they could cut through steel. Reporters flooded the room. Cameras flashed. Social media live-streamed it all. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't demand revenge. Instead, she smiled, calm, cold, calculated. "I wasn't just slapped," she began. "I was reduced. Labeled. Dismissed. Not because I broke a law, but because I didn't look like I belonged in a place I built. Her words were a scalpel. This is not about me. It's about every black woman who's ever been followed in a store, every brown child told to empty their pockets, every person of color who's ever been told, "You don't look like you belong here." The room was silent. I'm not pressing charges, I'm pressing reform. Mayor Bennett watched the press conference in his office, fists clenched, phone ringing nonstop. His chief of staff stormed in. She destroyed us in 5 minutes. Bennett's face was red. Suspended the damn officer? She's not asking for suspension. She's asking for justice. The pressure from the public was boiling. Civil rights groups, celebrities, Fortune 500 CEOs. They weren't just tweeting, they were pulling ad contracts, filing ethics complaints, threatening class actions. And Bennett knew. One wrong move now, and his entire career would be over. Back at Blake Luck's Group HQ, Imani entered a high-rise conference room where her senior board sat waiting. Mostly white men in expensive suits, jaws tight, eyes wary. "Imani, we understand your frustration," said Robert Crane, CFO. "But taking this public is risky for the brand." She raised a brow. "The brand?" "The mall investors are nervous. Stocks are shaky. We suggest letting the legal process play out quietly." "Quiet doesn't fix culture, Robert. Quiet lets it spread. We're a business, not a battleground." She leaned forward. "Then maybe it's time we redefine what business is." After the meeting, Crane cornered Imani in the hallway. "You're creating chaos?" She didn't flinch. "No, I'm creating accountability." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Be careful. Its power has limits." Imani's voice dropped to ice. "So do men who think they can scare me." She walked away, heels clicking like war drums. That night, the video aired on every major network. The angle from a teenage girl's phone, Imani being confronted, slapped, standing tall. Then the headline, "She owns the mall." He slapped the owner, pundits argued. Activists rallied. A news ticker read, "Blake Luck stocks rebound as public rallies around CEO." But behind the scenes, far-right influencers and hate groups began their own whisper campaign. She staged it. She played the race card. She's dangerous. Imani saw it all, and she didn't blink once. At midnight, Imani opened a package left on her desk. No return address. Just a letter. "They'll do worse than slap you, Imani. They'll try to erase you just like they erased me." Burn the silence down, eh? But her fingers trembled. It was from her mother, the one who vanished when she was 9. Imani sat back, shadows dancing on her face, mind racing. Imani located the teenager who captured the clearest video, 16-year-old Xavier Carter. A lanky black kid with ambition in his eyes. "You changed the story," she told him. "You captured the truth." He shrugged, didn't think it'd matter. She handed him a folder. Inside, a full-ride scholarship internship and mentorship program under her name. "You're going to matter for the rest of your life." He cried. She didn't. But her heart cracked open just a little. Imani's legal team filed a 200-page lawsuit against the city. It's the police department, the mall security subcontractors, and the individual officer. Claims of assault, racial profiling, public endangerment, and corporate liability. "We'll win," said her attorney. "I don't want to win," Imani replied. "I want to change the rules." Officer Mallory, now suspended and publicly shamed, appeared on a right-wing podcast. She was threatening, loud, looked out of place. "You mean ... like a criminal?" "What?" The host grinned. "Yeah." "What do you think of her being the CEO?" Mallory sneered. "If she's got so much power, why is she crying like a victim?" Imani saw the clip, saved it for court, for Congress, for the world. The next day, dozens of high-end fashion designers pulled out of Kingsford Mall, stating solidarity with Imani's stan. Versace, Balmain, Fenty, even Gucci. They sent her private notes. "Your strength redefines luxury. Let's rebuild from your platform," she realized then. She wasn't alone. Imani's private investigator brought her evidence. The mall security contract? Not just city-owned, The vendor who supplied the guards was secretly tied to Ronald. Crane Roberts' brother, own CFO, had direct links to the officer's hiring chain. A betrayal, a conflict of interest, and a chance to strike. She called an emergency board meeting, presented the evidence, publicly exposed the corruption, fired Robert Crane and 4 others on the spot. No negotiation, no mercy. "You're not just out of a job," she said. "You're out of this era." The press was waiting downstairs. And so were the feds. She announced a new department within Blake Lux Group, the Department of Equity and Action. A $100 million commitment to racial justice, legal protection, scholarships, and civil reform. Xavier was named youth director. The announcement went global. Before the headlines, before the heels, before the billion-dollar company, there was only fire. Imani was 10 years old the night the foster home burned. She sat on the curb, barefoot, skin streaked with ash, watching the only roof she had ever known collapse. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just clenched her fists and stared at the flames like they owed her answers. "They always come for what we build," whispered the old woman next to her. Imani looked up. "Then we build it again." It was the first deal she ever made with herself. Her first business wasn't fashion or retail. It was survival. At 15, Imani was selling handmade bracelets out of her backpack. At 17, she was flipping thrifted designer bags online with profit margins rivaling small firms. She didn't go to prom. She went to pitch meetings. And when she got accepted into Harvard on full scholarship, she didn't pack photos. She packed ledgers. Because family wasn't where you came from. It was who you paid. "Imani Blake," said her economics professor, pausing during a lecture, "if you keep answering every question, no one else will have a chance to learn." She stared at him evenly. "Then they should study harder." Day. A recruiter from Goldman Sachs asked for her number. She never called back. Because she didn't plan to serve power. She planned to own it. The day she founded Blake Lux, she wore thrifted gold stilettos that blistered her heels. But the pitch was flawless. The investors were stunned. And the $2 million seed funding came from a 15-minute meeting. They underestimated her. She never forgot that look when the old white man signed the check, thinking she was going to fail. Now his granddaughter wore Imani's label on the cover of Vogue. 2 weeks after the slap, Imani returned to Kingsford Malnot in silence, but with a film crew, a security team, and a personal stylist. White double-breasted blazer dress, gold heels, diamond earrings, red lips, a visual reminder she hadn't been destroyed. She had been remade. People stopped. Phones came out. No one said a word, until one security guard saluted her, and she nodded back. Officer Mallory's wife sent Imani a letter, handwritten. No excuses, just 6 words. "I'm sorry he did that to you." Imani placed it in a glass frame on her shelf, not as forgiveness, but as proof hate might live in systems, but humanity could break through. Imani revamped her executive team. 50% women, majority black and brown leadership. She didn't wait for diversity reports. She was the report. She replaced the outdated mission statement with a new one etched in steel. "We don't fit in rooms. We build them." London, Johannesburg, Sao Paulo. Tokyo footage of the slap and Imani's response became a symbol in global protests. Young women held signs with her face and the words, "She didn't bow, neither will we." A French journalist called her the Rosa Parks of retail. Imani shook her head when she saw it. No, Rosa did more with less. "I'm just getting started." Imani met with black business titans behind closed doors. Titans of tech, film, real estate. "They tried to break you," one said. "They gave me a microphone," she replied. "What now?" She slid a folder across the table. Inside, a blueprint for the first ever black-owned luxury mall franchise. Funded, staffed, and led by people of color. "And we're not leasing space," she said. "Yeah, we're buying the damn buildings." Weeks later, her proposal was leaked. Blogs mocked her. Woke billionaire wants woke mall. Investors pulled back. Banks froze lines of credit. And she knew exactly who did it. Ronald Crane, the ex-CFO's brother, lobbyist, whisperer to senators. It wasn't just revenge, it was war. Imani confronted Ronald Crane at a gala fundraiser he helped organize. He smiled smugly. "You're too emotional for expansion. Stick to fashion. It's prettier." She stepped in close, whispering just loud enough for the donors nearby to hear. "Your brother lied on security contracts. You sabotaged civil funding. You messed with the wrong woman." Then she smiled sweetly and raised her glass. Two snakes in tailored suits easy to spot when they shed their skin. Within 48 hours. A leaked video of Crane mocking black CEOs cost him 3 board positions. Back in her suite, Imani stared at her reflection again. Same blazer, same gold heels, but her eyes, sharper, hungrier. She wasn't just defending her name anymore. She was redefining the entire game. And now, she had the world's attention. She returned to her old neighborhood, run-down apartments, broken swings, trash fires. Kids ran up to her like she was a superhero. "You really own all them stores?" one girl asked. "I own more than that," Imani smiled. "And so will you." She handed the girl a business card. Future founder grant. Age limit. None. Her team reviewed the proposal for her new vision, the Blake Collective Malls. Startups, co-working hubs, salons, wellness centers, and banks, all centered around black excellence. No leasing to bigots, no contracts with discriminatory vendors. If your values weren't inclusive, your money was worthless here. Not everyone cheered. Even old allies warned, "You're drawing too sharp a line. You'll scare investors." Imani responded, "Good. I'm not building for cowards." Some left. She didn't flinch because for every door that closed, she built 10 more and put her face on the key. Her private investigator uncovered internal emails from city officials plotting delays to her permits. One read, "Let her protest. Let her rage. We'll strangle her in red tape." Imani didn't get angry. She got federal lawyers. Within a week, a civil rights case was filed. The mayor's staff went silent. The voice on the other end was calm, iconic, and warm. "Imani, I see what you're doing. It's brave. It's risky. It's brilliant." "I'm not afraid of risk," Imani replied. "You will be. But do it anyway. The world is watching." At a product launch, Imani unveiled the first shoe from her new luxury brand, reblazed the CEO stiletto gold. Sculpted heel, etched on the sole. Power was never meant to be polite. Sold out in 6 minutes, as the first Blake Collective Mall opened in Atlanta. One entire wing was dedicated to a museum, the cost of silence, featuring stories of women of color erased from business, politics, and culture. The entry wall read, "They didn't write us into history, so we wrote it ourselves." Jada, her assistant, discovered a fire-damaged folder in Imani's storage unit. Inside, blueprints from Imani's mother, business plans, articles, photos. Imani's eyes flooded. She had a vision too. She didn't speak for 2 days. Then she restructured her will. Her mother's name was now permanently listed as co-founder. Blake Legacy Trust. A conservative PAC released an ad painting Imani as a divisive extremist radicalizing business. Imani responded with a commercial of her own. No music. No actors. Just her, walking barefoot on marble, placing her gold heels beside a burning torch. The ad's tagline, "Let them call it radical, we call it overdue." Imani appeared on national television, interviewed by a black female host. "Did the slap change you?" "No," Imani said. "It reminded me why I changed the world around me." Audience, standing ovation. One day, a package arrived with no return label. Inside a note, "You should have stayed in your lane." She didn't report it. She held a press conference instead. "This is my lane, and it leads to power." Then she unveiled her private security firm, black-owned, tech integrated, training survivors of violence. She received a letter written by her grandmother, mailed from prison in 1968. "I hope you walk in spaces where no one questions if you belong." She framed it, hung it beside her diploma. Legacy wasn't money, it was message. Officer Mallory wrote an apology, letter from jail. She read it once, burned it. She didn't need an apology. She needed a revolution. on a red-eye flight. An older white woman in first class leaned over. "You're the woman who owns all those malls." "Yes. I didn't expect you to look so glamorous." Imani smiled. "Power should look however it damn well pleases." Time Forbes L.Imani Blake on every cover. Dressed in white, gold heels gleaming, headline bold. She took one slap and built a kingdom. At 3 a.m. she walked through Kingsford Mall alone. Empty corridors. Dim lights. She stood where she'd been slapped. Closed her eyes, then whispered, "Thank you," not to the man, to the moment, because it birthed the empire. Imani stood at the podium inside the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Dressed in a deep emerald green suit that shimmered under the lights, her silk-pressed hair was pinned in a soft updo, exposing the gold studs on her ears and the slight gleam of sweat on her brow, not from nerves, but from purpose. "In this country," she began, "black women are told to be exceptional, just to be seen as average." A pause. A breath. "Today, I'm announcing the crowdfunded $500 million initiative to support black female founders, innovators, coders, builders, and dreamers. No gatekeeping, no token seats at the table. We're building our own tables." The room erupted in applause. This wasn't charity. This was economic warfare with lipstick and heels. The City Planning Commission didn't want to approve her. New Blake Collective campus. They cited zoning limitations. Dadadani. Knew the truth-coded language for your growing too fast, too black, too bold. She arrived at the hearing dressed in Iberia monochrome signal of purity and power and stood at the front of the courtroom, hands clasped. "You have a choice," she told the board. "You can cling to fear, or you can evolve with this." "City," she didn't shout. She commanded when the vote passed unanimously in her favor. She didn't smile, she nodded. Like a queen receiving the throne she already built. Harvard's business school was filled with marble halls and portraits of men who looked nothing like Imani. That changed. One morning, students walked into the central rotunda to see a new quote engraved into the wall. "Power is not gifted, it's declared." Imani Blake, class of 2012 underneath it. A golden plaque. First black woman billionaire to graduate from this institution. Owner of one of the most profitable mall chains in U.S. history. She didn't return for a ceremony. She returned for legacy. Late one night, Jada walked into Imani's office, holding her phone like it was made of glass. "You need to see this." On screen was a video. A foster care reunion program. A woman named Naomi, with the same eyes. The same dimples. A scar on her left wrist. "She's your sister," Jada whispered. Imani stared at the screen for a long time, its tears threatening to fall. The next week, they met at a small diner in Atlanta. No cameras. No press. Just two sisters, finally finding their way back through scars, through silence, through strength. Imani returned to her old high school in Chicago under gray skies and memory-thick air. She stood in front of the new wing-fresh brick, polished doors, shining glass. Above it, bold steel letters. The Imani Blake Center for Entrepreneurship and POWR students gathered, clapping. Some holding signs. One girl yelled, "Teach me how to walk like you." Imani laughed softly. "I don't walk for applause," she said. "I walk so you can run." Inside her headquarters, a digital screen updated every hour tallying how many employees were hired through the Blake Collective today. The number ticked over. 100. She walked down the main floor, heels clicking over polished concrete, surrounded by staffers, black women in head wraps, queer teens in creative gear, immigrant coders, formerly incarcerated youth, diverse, driven, devoted. I missed a toast at lunch to every door they closed. To every "you don't belong." We built this floor by floor end. We're not done. A major conglomerate offered her $5 billion to acquire the Blake Collective. They called it a smart move. Imani called it an insult. In a closed-door meeting, she slid the offer across the table, then calmly set it on fire in a brass dish. The flame danced as the boardroom stared. "I didn't build this to sell it," she said. "I built it so we could own it." The clip of her burning the offer went viral. She titled it, Know your worth. Then add taxes. Her publishing deal was inked in blood, figuratively, of course. Every major house wanted the rights. She titled her memoir, Slap Me Again. I Dare You. The cover was powerful, her silhouette in gold heels, standing alone on the marble floor, where it all began. Early excerpts leaked online. One line trended for days. They tried to embarrass me in public. So one rebuilt the public. She stepped onto the TED Talk stage wearing a custom deep red suit, open to gold stilettos and a lapel pin shaped like a fist inside a crown. The audience leaned in. Cameras rolled. Imani began. I wasn't born into wealth. I was born into survival, but I never wanted to just survive. I wanted to build a world where we don't have to. Her 80-minute talk became the most viewed TED Talk in history, every time she said power. The room shook. Emma stood in front of Congress. A room of mostly older white men in gray suits, pens twitching, eyes measuring. Do you believe racism exists in modern business? One senator asked. She leaned forward. .com. Deadly? Do you believe water is wet? The room fell silent. She listed statistics, shared stories, named names. They weren't expecting elegance and fire. They got both. Her phone buzzed with a name she hadn't seen in years. Marcus, the man who told her she was too ambitious, that she'd scare investors away. He texted, proud of you. Maybe we can reconnect sometime. She stared at it, typed nothing. Screenshot, saved, deleted. Later, she posted on Threads. If they couldn't clap for you in the struggle, don't hand them tickets to the throne.
Imani
Adopted a baby girl from the same foster network she grew up in. The moment she held her, the world slowed. She named her Isha Swahili for hope. Tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb. A new legacy began. Asha would grow up knowing her mother didn't just fight for her own voice, but for every girl told to stay quiet. With Asha in her arms, Imani launched the Blake Seed Fund, a $1 billion venture fund supporting underserved women around the globe. In Kenya, in Brazil, in Detroit, Pakistan. She sent funds, mentorship, startup kits, and one-line letters. They said no. I said, watch me. Now I'm saying, here's your turn. The Smithsonian unveiled a life-sized platinum portrait of Imani Blake. She wore her iconic white blazer dress and gold Christian Laobounds. With Asha sitting on her hip, the plaque read, the queen who wore heels and history at the same time. The Crown Fund graduated its first 50 fellows, young black girls, who would become app developers, scientists, chefs, and CEOs. They held her hands, kissed her cheeks. You saved my life, one whispered. Imani wiped her own eyes. No, you saved mine. She visited the old burned foster home site, now an empty field. She stood in the same spot she once watched it all burn down as a child. This time, she planted a tree. Next to it, a plaque, from fire we rise. She created a sealed vault called the Power Capsule, containing stories, shoes, letters, and dreams from black women of today. It's not to be opened until 2125. It's not about what we built, she said, sealing the final envelope. It's about who we built for. Imani launched a digital museum honoring unknown women who changed history. Janitors, teachers, nurses, warriors, each story narrated by celebrities. Exhibit a firework of forgotten greatness. Because she wasn't building fame, she was building memory. Blake Lux, plus Blake Collective plus Crown Fund equals $1 trillion valuation. She declined another acquisition offer and smiled. Imagine being told to stay quiet, then building something loud enough to shake the world. In the middle of a quiet morning, Asha looked up at Imani, eyes wide, and said, Queen. Imani broke down, not because she was proud, but because she wasn't alone anymore. In front of Kingsford Mall, now renamed Blake Global Pavilion, a 30-foot tall statue of Imani was revealed. Heels on marble. Chin up, fist raised. The inscription read, Slapped once, stood forever. Imani walked into her third Blake Collective flagship mall, Asha walking beside her. Tiny heels clicking like an echo of destiny. Crowds cheered, but Imani wasn't thinking about them. She was thinking about every girl watching, every woman rising, and every empire still waiting to be built. Imani sat in her penthouse office at 2:03 a.m., Asha asleep nearby in her crib. Her phone buzzed. An encrypted message arrived from an anonymous source. At the subject line, "You're being watched. They want you gone." Attached, a chain of emails. Between U.S. senators, corporate lobbyists, real estate developers, they weren't just afraid of her. They were building a plan to take her down. The Baymore Club was elite. Membership required a net worth of $500 million, 3 political references, and, unofficially, a resistance to change. Tonight, the room buzzed. "She's dangerous." One senator said. "She's too visible," said a media mogul. "She's black. Beautiful and powerful. That scares people." They nodded, drank scotch, and agreed. Imani Blake must be contained. A top political reporter. Rachel Klein received a 6-figure offer to dig up dirt on Imani. She started snooping. But instead of scandals, she found nothing. Just adoption records, charity donations, community investments. Her editor demanded drama. She refused. She lost her job and became Imani's new director of Truth Media, Governor Harmon, up for re-election, announced legislation that would impose harsh new restrictions on private retail franchises clearly aimed at the Blake Collective. In a private meeting, he told Imani, "You've gotten too big, too fast. We need to slow you down." She replied, "No, you want to shrink in Washington." Her lobbying requests were delayed, denied, buried in red tape. One staffer whispered, "There's an unofficial blacklist and you're on it." Imani didn't blink. "Good," she said. "Let's make them choke on that list." At Blake Lux HQ, Jada discovered a Mulsawan leaking Imani's internal memos to media and political enemies. The mole was a man Imani once mentored. Promoted. Protected. She called him into her office. "No lawyers, no PR." "Why?" she asked, eyes steady. He looked down. "They offered me $1 million. I didn't think you'd make it this far," she replied. "You'll think about that for the rest of your life," and fired him on the spot. Imani faced 4 lawsuits in 1 week, called bogus. All filed by shell companies tied to Crane and Partners. Defamation, labor violations, intellectual theft, even parenting fitness. She responded with a single tweet. "When they can't beat you in daylight, they hide in shadows. I built my empire in both." Her personal accounts were hacked. Private emails leaked. A video of her crying after her adoption process was twisted into a meme. But instead of hiding, she posted the full video uncut. It showed her saying, "This child doesn't need a perfect mother. She needs a present one." It trended as #present, like Ima, N.I., Asha. Staycare received a threat. The building was evacuated. FBI called in. Imani didn't weep. She didn't flinch. She increased her child's security, then posted a message. "You threatened my daughter. That was your final mistake?" Imani gathered her closest allies, lawyers, founders, tech giants in a private island for a 3-day retreat. They formed the Blake Pacta Coalition to fight coordinated suppression of black-owned businesses, each signed with blood-colored ink, not a partnership. A revolution. Cable news twisted every move she made. One anchor said, "Imani Blake is what happens when power lacks humility." She smiled, then bought ad space on their network, carrying a 60-second spot of her donating school supplies to 1,000 girls of color. Narration: "When they lie about you, flood them with truth," was called before Congress under the guise of corporate oversight. They tried to frame her success as dangerous. She leaned into the mic. Black success is only called dangerous when it refuses to be obedient. Every word was a firebomb. A Republican senator's daughter publicly praised Imani on Instagram, posting a photo of herself reading "Slap me again, I dare you." It caused a scandal, but she refused to delete it. "She's everything I want to be," the girl said. A mysterious backer wired $100 million into the Crown Fund. No name. Just a note: "They tried to silence you. Use my voice. New York renamed one of its largest business towers, the Imani Blake Tower of Justice and Commerce. Unveiling drew 500,000 people. A gospel choir sang. Drones lit the sky, but Imani just stood silent, holding Usha's hand. An attempt was made on her motorcade. 2 cars rammed her convoy. No injuries, no arrests. But now, she didn't travel without a full tactical team. She walks like a president. The media said, wrong. She walked like a queen. After a black girl was assaulted in a mall in Detroit, Imani called for a one-day national strike. Thousands of black-owned stores, salons, and startups shut down in protest. The message, keep this country running. You can feel our silence now. A handwritten note arrived in elegant script. You're the evolution of everything they tried to bury. I'm proud of you. Keep going, Imani cried. Then framed the letter in her office, right next to her mother's. She launched her own network, Truth Media by Blake, with real stories, uncensored news, and no billionaire puppet strings. There. First viral story? Breakdown of how many politicians tried to erase her behind closed doors? They called it The List. She received the Nobel Prize for Economic Justice. Times, Person of the Year, a statue in London. She smiled for cameras. Then, said quietly to Jada, these are nice, but none of them saved that girl in Detroit. A retired 4-star black general sent Imani a private message. They're afraid of you, because you don't flinch. He added one line. If you ever need an army, you already have one. Yeah. Smiled, and saved his number. 10 former CEOs accused Imani of reverse discrimination. She fired back by publishing their donation records to hate groups, pay gaps, and sexual harassment settlements. She didn't say a word. She let the receipts speak. A group of mothers whose children had been profiled, attacked, or killed marched to Kingsford Mall, now Blake Global Pavilion. They carried candles, portraits, silence. Imani met them at the door, held their hands and whispered, this space is yours now. Imani launched Blake Reclaim Bank, an initiative to offer interest-free loans to black women starting their own businesses in Redland districts. In 2 weeks, 4,200 loans were approved. The first billboard read, reparations in real time. President invited Imani to speak at the Economic Inclusion Summit. She agreed, but added one condition. Don't ask me to play nice. I'm not coming to make you comfortable, coming to make you change. With tiny sunglasses, gold sneakers, and a fist in the air, Usha marched beside her mother in downtown Atlanta. The crowd cheered louder for the toddler than anyone else. Imani kissed her forehead. This is yours too, baby. One night before a major keynote, Imani stood in front of a full-length mirror. She practiced her first line. They tried to erase me, so I used their ink to write my name on the skyline. She didn't blink once. The same hacker who once breached Imani's files came forward, asking to join her cause. I saw what they wanted to do to you. I can help stop them. She agreed on one condition. You don't work for me. You work for the people they silence. He now runs Blake's cyber defense, training thousands of black teens in ethical hacking. Imani rented the top floor of the Empire State Building for a closed meeting. 30 black women in power walked in. No press. No agenda. Just a question from Imani. What if we stopped waiting for the world to change and took it? The leaked files hit the internet like a tidal wave. Every senator who tried to block her, exposed every judge, every funder, every media exec on the anti-Imani thread. Shamed, fired, investigated. She didn't post about it. She went to brunch. One of her stores was vandalized. Windows shattered. Slurs painted on the walls. She arrived at midnight, swept the glass herself, then filmed a video. You can break glass, but you can't break legacy. The video hit 100 million views in 24 hours. 19-year-old woman posted a video of her tattoo, a gold crown inked behind her ear. I got it for her. So every time I doubt myself, I remember, Imani didn't flinch. I won't either. Thousands followed. A global movement was born. Hashtag Crown Up Governor Harmon lost redash election in his concession speech. He muttered, we underestimated the storm, Imani. Watched it over coffee, and said nothing. Inside the new Blake HQ, a private chamber was created. Gold walls, quotes of resistance etched in obsidian. A single chair in the center, not for meetings, for meditation. Because even queens need silence before war. A teenage girl wrote her a letter. I dropped out, got pregnant. It told me my life was over. But then I read your story. Imani flew to her personally, gave her a scholarship, a mentor. A place in her internship program. You're not over, she told her. You're just beginning. A new bridge connecting to underserved communities was built and named in her honor, the Blake Bridge, connecting power to the people. Walked across it at dawn, alone, in gold heels. She was inducted into the National Hall of Firsts. First black woman to own a national retail chain. First black woman to beat the U.S. government at their own game. First black woman to slap the world. Back without ever lifting her hand. Ronald Crane's own daughter defected. She joined, Blake Collective said publicly. My father fought to silence her, but she spoke truth into me. Ronald went silent for good. Imani hosted a global summit of women of color in Dubai. No suits, no neckties, no scripts, just truth, power, and shared fire. The final session ended with a standing chant. They won't break us. They'll rename the world after us. One evening, Imani locked her door and broke down crying. Not from fear, but from the weight. Jay Ada found her, held her. You don't have to carry it all. I do, Imani whispered, because no one else will. She returned to Kingsford Mall. Same spot, same marble. It's time, with Asha holding her hand. No slap, only silence, and power so thick it buzzed through the air at a school she sponsored. A nonverbal child painted a picture of Imania. Golden figures surrounded by lightning. The teacher asked why. The child signed. She's my voice. Imani framed the painting. The DNC approached Imani about running for Senate. She refused. I don't need their podium, she said. I built my own stage. She opened a bookstore in Accra, Gone Afraid Books for Girls Only. The opening banner read, For the Daughters of a Stolen Legacy, and may this be your inheritance. Cha. Now, age 6, stood in her mother's walk-in closet, trying on Imani's original gold heels. Will I be a queen too? She asked. Imani knelt down, kissed her hands. Baby, you already are. An old friend went to the press, selling a false story about Imani for money. She said nothing, did nothing, let the world destroy. Him for her, because queens don't argue with peasants. Her empire expanded into schools, tech, health, politics, and media. It became known as Crown Nation, a global movement, and Imani. She was called the Empress of Equity. Asha stood on stage at a youth summit. 7 years old, one line, clear as a bell. My mommy fights with love. And love is louder than hate, the room cried. Imani watched from backstage. She returned to the original security footage. The slap. Watched it one last time, then deleted it for good. Because she didn't need to remember. What they did, she only needed to remember what she became. A mural was painted on the side of the new Blake Pavilion in DC. Imani, Asha, a skyline in flames, and in gold paint, one line across the top. They slapped her. She rebuilt the world. Inside the new Blake Global headquarters, Imani unveiled the centerpiece, a glass atrium called the Throne Room, a symbolic chamber for decision-making by women of color across industries. The furniture? Carved. Thrones made of African oak. And recycled steel from raised police stations. The message was clear. We don't just sit at the table anymore. We own the table. And we made it look like us. Imani introduced the Blake Founders Sealand Elite, stamped for businesses that proved they uplifted marginalized communities. Applicants were vetted by survivors, teachers, students, and civil rights leaders. Only 17 companies qualified in the first-year. Exclusivity wasn't the goal, excellence was. The third Blake Collective Mall opened in Oakland, but this one was different. It was solar-powered. It's filled with community-run shops, tech hubs, childcare cops, and artist studios. No luxury. Brands. No exclusionary pricing, just innovation, culture, and ownership. It's not a mall, Imani said. It's ours. One day a letter arrived, no return address. I was a cop for 28 years. I saw what they did to you. I was too quiet. Sorry. My daughter wears your heels now. She's louder than I ever was. Imani didn't cry, but she had the letter framed, invited to the White House for a private dinner with global leaders. Imani arrived in a shimmering black gown with gold-threaded braids, and no entourage. The First Lady leaned in and said, "You. Walk like you already own this place." Imani smiled. "I do, spiritually." Imani buried a time capsule in front of Blake Pavilion, D.C. inside. A pair of her first gold heels, Usha's first drawing, the original slap footage, and a letter that read, "To the black girl reading this 100 years from now, take the throne, and then build a higher one." Thousands of women gathered at her new summit, Daughters of Fire, where every speaker had survived something: abuse, racism, war, silence, the stage. A circle of fire in the center of a marble room. Each woman walked through it barefoot, then spoke. No one left untouched. She donated the white dress she wore the day she was slapped to the National Civil Rights Museum. But first, she burned a strip of it, sealed the ashes in a glass cube. Busha, now 8, wore a tiny crown made of glass and lace. At a youth gala, she stood beside her mother and delivered a line that lit up the world. "I don't just want to be like her. I want to be more." Imani launched Crown Coin, a digital currency that backed community-owned businesses. The tagline: "Your money should reflect your values." In a week, it had 2.1 million users. A former hedge fund exec who mocked her years ago now applied for a role in her finance division. Jada flagged his name. Imani responded with a post-it. "Let him learn how to sweep floors first." He was hired as a janitor. Lesson: power circles back. Imani co-authored the Crown Act expansion, protecting black hair and cultural expression in all workplaces across the USS. It passed when asked how she got senators to agree. She said, "I reminded them their daughters are watching." An elder librarian approached her at a gala. "You remind me of Ella Baker, baby." Imani bowed her head. "Thank you. I'm trying to remind them of every woman they erased." The mall where it all began was now a 3-story cultural and entrepreneurial hub with murals, bookstores, tech labs, and meditation gardens. Above the front entrance, "This is where they slapped me. This is where I built my throne." In Washington, D.C., Imani opened the Crown Library of Resistance. It housed banned books, letters from ancestors, data on progress. It was a temple of truth. At a school visit, a boy no older than 10 stood up during Q&A. "Miss Blake, how do I become strong like you?" She knelt down, smiled, and said, "You already are. You just forgot." She bought a private jet for international equity missions. Its name. Asha won inside. Every seat had a quote stitched on the headrest from a woman in her life jata. Naomi, her mother, herself. Legacy in flight. The hacker turned a lie developed a new AI. Detect voter suppression in real dash time. They presented it to Congress. Imani funded it personally. Quietly, because justice doesn't always need applause as execution. She returned to her childhood, neighborhood, and bought the lot her grandmother's garden once bloomed on. She rebuilt it, named it the garden that raised me. Every child in the community got a patch of soil with their name. After years of grinding, Imani finally allowed herself 10 days of silence in Bali. No emails, no cameras, just oceans, journals, and Asha. Even queens need to rest their crowns. And Old Flame asked her to marry him on live TV. She smiled, took his hand, kissed it, then whispered, "I love you. But I've got more to build than promises." The crowd gasped. She walked away, still single, still sovereign. At the UN, she gave a speech titled "Build the Girls First." Her voice shook as she said, "If we build schools like we build prisons, our daughters won't need to be saved. They'll be leading the ones who once ignored them." Imani funded her sister's first boutique, a fusion of Nigerian fashion. An streetwear. Naomi cried at the ribbon cutting. "Why me?" She asked, Because your blood deserves gold, Imani whispered. Another attempt to infiltrate Blake Global failed. Imani confronted the spy herself. In private, you were willing to sell us for $70,000. That's what you think we're worth? He shook. You're lucky I believe in redemption, she said, and had him arrested. Imani threw a royal-themed ball for girls across the U.S. ages. 6 to 18, every girl got a gown, a crown. In a leadership workshop, Asha gave the welcome speech. We're not princesses. We're builders. Blake Collective launched an annual contest. One girl would earn the crown seat, a year-long mentorship directly under Imani. The first winner? A 14-year-old coder from Mississippi, whose app helped fight domestic abuse. Imani formed a coalition of global women CEOs from underserved backgrounds. Together, they pooled $2 billion in resources. Their slogan, "One voice is powerful. A pride is unstoppable." Remember those early lawsuits? One reached the Supreme Court. Imani won. Unanimously. When asked for comment, she said, "Justice takes time, but I never forget where to aim." A black waitress once served her coffee in silence. Years later, Imani returned with a $50,000 tip and a handwritten gold note. "Thank you for not breaking when the world bent you. Now let me return the favor." Massive portrait was painted, Imani and Asha back to back, each holding a sapphire. It was titled, "The Reign Continues." She had her amended birth certificate framed in her office. Orphan. Female. African American. Foster care. Below it, she wrote in marker. "And still I built the world." In every Blake Global restroom mirror worldwide, a quote appeared. If you're reading this, you're standing in the presence of greatness. Now act like it. One night, Asha found a sealed envelope on her pillow. Inside, Imani's letter. "Baby, I didn't build all this for me. I built it so when the world tells you no, you'll already have your own." Yes, Imani commissioned a world map that centered the global South, not Europe. It was displayed in every Blake building. "Reframe the map. Reframe the mind," she said. Imani stepped onto her private jet. Asha won, bound for Johannesburg. Crown Global had just expanded into 17 countries. The team toasted champagne, but Imani sat quiet by the window, staring down at the earth. "This is where the world changes," she whispered. Asha laid her head on her lap. The tarmac was lined with girls, holding gold paper crowns. The mayor gave Imani the key to the city. An elder said, "Your voice crossed oceans before you did." Imani bowed. "I speak for the women who were never handed a key, so I became the door." In Kenya, she walked through one of the largest open-air markets, unguarded. Women gathered around, cheering, crying. She stood on a crate and said, "You are not waiting to be discovered. You are not forgotten. You are the economy, the power, the story." In Paris, she met with European investors who nodded politely, but dismissed her quietly. She smiled back, stood up halfway through and said, "If your money won't follow women, your relevance won't follow me." She walked out, cameras rolling. By morning, she trended as #crown walks out of Turkish. Banker questioned the stability of her cooperative model. She handed him a report showing her stores had outperformed Amazon subsidiaries in 6 regions. He swallowed and asked how he could invest. She opened Crown Pavilion Cairo, hiring 2,000 local women and launching Arabical language business mentorship apps. One teen girl whispered, "I thought queens only lived in stories." Imani took her hand. "We are the story." In Brazil, she met with indigenous women leaders of the Amazon. They shared lands, languages, and struggles. Together, they created the Crown Earth Fund, investing $100 million in land rights protection. The Pope invited her privately. "You are uniting more souls than any doctrine," he said. Imani smiled humbly. "I'm just telling the truth with a crown on." She arrived in Lagos to a crowd of 500,000 people. A tribal chief placed a handmade golden cloth crown on her head. "You are not American royalty," he said. "You are ancestral fulfillment." Imani commissioned a massive quilt stitched by women across 30 nations, each patch telling a story of survival. It was called "The Thread That Refused to Break." It now hangs in the U.N. She launched Asha Academy. It's an international school model, blending tech, ancestral knowledge, and girl-centered leadership. The motto? Lead loud, love deeper, rise together. British media slammed her for being too radical. She responded with a London Times op-ed titled, "You called us savages, now you fear our sophistication." It went viral. A Saudi minister refused to shake her hand. Imani extended it anyway. He flinched. She smiled. "I don't need you to touch my hand. Just feel my impact." Propaganda launched against her across Europe. Photoshopped scandals. Affairs. She hired a team of female coders to create CrownCheck, a real-time fact-check app. The truth burned brighter. Women garment workers in Cambodia, which began organizing under her guidance. They sewed gold thread into their protest shirts. Global media called them the Daughters of Blake in Vietnam. Her interpreter broke down crying. Mid-conference, I was beaten for reading, she said. Imani stopped everything, hugged her and told the press, "Translate this, every woman deserves a future that doesn't fear her voice." A foreign state actor tried to crash her financial system. They failed. Because the Crown, its collective, now had a legion of ethical black female coders. Imani texted the head of cyber defense, "You're the reason empires don't fall." At a silent meditation event in Tokyo, a child slipped Imani a note. "Your story saved my sister." No name, just a drawing. A girl with a crown and wings. She funded clean water access in 20 African villages. When asked why she didn't post about it, she said, "True queens don't need credit, they need impact." In Ukraine, she visited a refugee camp of displaced mothers and children. She left behind food, toys, solar power stations, and books written in every native tongue. One mother cried and kissed her feet. Imani knelt down, held her, and whispered, "No one bows here. We rise together." In South Korea, Imani met with a coalition of female tech CEOs. Together, they formed the Soul Sister Pact, a data-sharing network to fight discrimination and startup funding. "Data is power," Imani said, "and power shared becomes unstoppable." Rural India, Imani joined women protesting child marriage. A girl named Meena held Imani's hand and declared, "I am not for sale. I am not a wife. I am the future." Imani gave her the first scholarship from the Freedom Fund at every Crown building worldwide. A mailbox appeared labeled, "Letters to Imani." She read 100 every night, crying, laughing, learning. "This is why I keep fighting." She told Jada, "These stories are the real empire." The Vietnamese translator's daughter sent her a painting, Imani made of sun rays, lifting girls from darkness. She framed it in her global office. Back home, thousands of women gathered in Harlem to watch Imani address the UN. They wore gold. They stood as she spoke. Because when one rises, they all do. Imani backed a new bank in Haiti, run entirely by local women. The IMF tried to block it. She bought the land outright. "Colonizers don't write checks anymore," she said. "We do." On a scientific base, a female researcher planted the Crown flag. It was now the southernmost sign of Imani's reach. She didn't even know about it until a postcard arrived. "Even here, your fire burns." She bought 2,000 acres in Nigeria and gave it to female farmers. Not least, given. Double quotes. No paperwork. She told her team. A statue taller than Imani was unveiled, her holding a torch made of books and business plans inscribed. She wasn't just a spark. She was the firewood. In Manila, street artists painted murals of Imani and Filipino women breaking chains. She flew there overnight, not to pose, to shake their hands and say, "I didn't free you. You did that yourselves. I just lit the match." She launched the Global Museum of Women in Power, featuring voices erased from history. African queens, native leaders, activists, CEOs. Revolutionaries' history was no longer his story. A European company stole her designs. Her lawyers sued. She didn't gloat. She sent them a copy of Slap Me Again, I Dare You, with a sticky note. Next time, try originality. Asha, now 12, gave her first solo speech at the UN Youth Assembly. The world doesn't need more towers. It needs more tables. And we're not asking for a seat, we're bringing our own. Blake Global was now the fastest growing cooperative in the world. Imani didn't celebrate with champagne. She walked barefoot through her Ghana garden with Naomi. Peace tastes better than press. A mall in Texas was attacked, spray-painted, still just a black woman. Imani didn't respond with fury. She responded by turning that location into a center for cultural justice. The sign outside is still just a black woman, and that's exactly why we win. An Indian woman in the textile industry risked her life exposing corporate abuse. Imani hired her, not as a manager, as a chief integrity officer. An internal memo from a political group read, "Imani Blake is becoming too powerful. She's uncontainable." She had it framed in her guest bathroom. A remote African village renamed itself, Kanaka, meaning the crown that stood. She visited secretly, slept in their huts, cooked their meals, because true power returns to its roots. A mosque dome was painted with a massive golden tree, and the phrase, "And the crown grew beyond the kingdom." No press, just a gift. A girl in Uganda was named Empire after hearing Imani's speech over a scratchy radio. That baby will grow up never questioning. If she belongs in Morocco, an older woman couldn't understand Imani's speech, so Imani took her hand, sat with her. No words, just held space. The woman wept and nodded. A former British MP who once mocked Imani went on live TV. She proved me wrong, and she's changed the world while I clung to the past. Crown coin was now accepted in 50 nations. One paper called it the financial revolution that war heals. Imani just shrugged. Money follows courage. In the Andes, she spoke from a mountain summit. They tried to keep us at the bottom, but the view from here proves they failed. In Cairo, 100,000 women marched without chanting, holding signs that read "crowned, not owned." She received the Global Humanitarian Medal, accepted it in socks, holding Usha's hand, because legacy doesn't need lace. She returned to that very first mall, stood, alone at sunrise, touched the tiles where she was once slapped, whispered, "This ground didn't defeat me, it defined me." A girl in Syria ran from a war zone holding only one item, a torn page from Imani's book. It read, "You're more than survival. You're the sun after the storm." Imani hosted a final summit, not with CEOs, but with janitors, farmers, cooks, artists, refugees, survivors, no cameras, just chairs. She toasted, "This is the real power. This is the real crown." A satellite photo showed crown buildings glowing in every continent like golden dots across the earth. Asha looked at it and whispered, "You didn't just build a throne, Mama. You made the planet your crown." Imani Blake stood at the edge of the ocean in Ghana, the sun setting in gold behind her, Usha's hand wrapped tight in hers. All around her, the world echoed with the empire she built. Schools, banks, statues. Women rising, girls unafraid. A globe that once mocked her, now molded in her vision. She closed her eyes and inhaled the wind that once whispered doubt into her ears. Not anymore. She had turned a single slap into a symphony of justice. She had made power a mirror, one that finally reflected every woman who had been told she was too loud, too dark, too ambitious, too much. And now, in the quiet of legacy, Imani smiled, not because she won, but because she rebuilt the world, and left the door wide open for every queen after her to walk through, head high, crown steady. The end.